Hi, everybody. I'm working on a junk journal rotation project where essentially a group of us from a Facebook group are going to share a junk journal rotation where we send our junk journals to each other. And everybody would be responsible for creating a spread within the junk journal, so on and so forth. And I am building my junk journal from scratch. And so what I've essentially done is I've pulled together my signatures. I have 3 signatures with a bunch of different paper, both papers that I've made, watercolor paper, old sheet music, some cardstock, bits and pieces of old papers from the mail. I've got a hotel register page in here, tissue paper as pages, which I may rethink. And I also got an idea of adding some old canvases that I had painted. And I'm actually got this idea because I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for the cover. I wanted something soft and flexible, but toothy enough to hold up, because this is going to be passing through the mail and people's hands and all of that stuff. And so we're doing the A5 size, and I figure with my signatures, I need about a 2-inch spine. And so then I was trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I want to cover this with? Do I cover it? I definitely wanted something soft and fabricy, but again, it's got to be able to hold up for several weeks being passed back and forth through multiple different people. So I had some old canvases, some paintings that I had done a while ago that I just didn't like necessarily, or I didn't, the frames were having issues and it had been stored in the closet. And I thought, well, this might be a really interesting way to use up some old paintings. I cut off the bottom, and as you saw, but now I have to cover it. So essentially this is A6 size, or A5 size, 8.5 by 6 with about a 2-inch spine, which I haven't ever seen anybody use old canvases and paintings. I mean, they come right off the stretcher frame relatively easy. I have just a plethora of canvases and things that I've painted, and I'm running out of wall space. So I was like, well, what's another creative way for some of these things to continue on in a life beyond, just hanging on the wall? And so I thought this might be a really interesting way. And again, canvas is relatively sturdy and heavyweight because this has a shellac on it. It's not likely to scratch. And I can add other things. So my goal with this also, before I get ready and actually cover it, I'm going to use some more flexible kind of chipboard. I think this is just parting some packing material, like a box, a real flexible box, just to give it a little bit more sturdiness because I don't think the canvas is quite thick enough. And then the interior will actually be to a harder cardstock spine and then glued in and finished on the inside. But I wanted to kind of share the starting at the beginning of this process because I think that this is going to be a really cool thing to do. Again, I've cut it slightly larger because again, I'm intending that I'm going to have to fold this over to make it essentially, if you think about it, these are going to be here, right? And I'm going to have to fold this over onto the inside. You'll get the whole, the gist of the picture. So I tried to kind of plan out where the picture was going to end up at. So you get the prettiest part of the picture to roll over the outside, but maybe an interesting and unique way to use up some old canvases. I am going to do a couple of things before I get started. I want to add some stitching to this before I glue it in. So I have a little bit of extra interest. And then I'm also going to add in some additional beads and things to give some interest to the insides of these where the flowers are at, because I think it'll look really cool. So again, some stitching around the outside edge in the color scheme. My color scheme for this is navy blue and pink, or hot pink. And so I thought this canvas specifically, I have one other one, but it didn't quite look right. I had another one in this series that I did because this was a set of 2 or 3 paintings that I did. But but the flower on that one is bigger. This had a little bit more, something interesting that I could do on a cover. But I'm going to add some stuff. So catch me back here in a second and I'll show you what I did with adding the stitching and all of that. And then we should be good to start putting the cover together. Okay, I've got my sewing machine out and about. And on the back side here, I've kind of given myself a pattern, some straights and some zigzags. So I'll start out on the straight side. I'm doing this from the back because I drew the pattern on here. So I want to make sure that I have both colors that I need. It should sew through here just fine. I do have it on a longer stitch, so it's a little bit more visible. And we'll start off at straights. Gotta turn the thing on. Okay. We're just gonna sew along where this would essentially be, and then I'm gonna switch over to my zigzag stitch. And go back and forth. Hopefully you get to see it here in just a second as I come around. Again, going back to straight again and switching back and forth between straights and zigzags. And just kind of following along. You can kind of start to see it there. I just go back and forth between, straights and zigzags. On the front, it's going to give me that. And that looks really terrible because the way it, I didn't think about the way it was poking through. I don't know. Let's finish it because we already started it, and then we'll take a look at the front and see how terrible that looks. Because maybe we should have hand sewn it. So, okay. So let's take a look and see how terrible this looks on the front. Okay. Well, I mean, it's okay. Not completely atrocious, but what I don't like, and I don't know if you can see that, you see the white? I might be able to touch that up a little bit. I just don't know. I didn't think about the fact that it would, when it pokes through, you can potentially, maybe it's just brushed off there. Because it poked through and caused the canvas. Good question. So now what do I do? These are the things that, as you're going through and making decisions, then you see, I like that. I don't know that I like that at all. I don't know that I like the little white. And yeah, they are coming off technically, but it's like where the stuff poked through. Maybe it's all right. I think it's just the little bit of canvas that poked through there. Rub it with my finger. It is technically kind of coming off. So maybe I'll clean that up and see if I need to touch up anything, because it does look like it's just a little tiny bit of canvas that's coming up through the holes. But as I'm scratching it with my finger, it is coming off, and so it is looking better, but not 100%. So I'll clean that. I'll finish going around because I already kind of started this process. So now I feel like I have to keep going because sometimes, it's a disaster in the middle, but it may turn out really cool in the end. At least that's my hope anyway. All right. I'm also going to put some, because I've got the zigzags on the front cover, I am going to put some zigzags on some of my pages as well. Well, I've got the sewing machine out and about. And then I will also, okay, so there's that. I will end up roughing this up and probably gluing these so they don't disappear. Anyway, and that's actually really pretty on the inside. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. I am going to take some of my paper. So I have my signatures. And so for instance, maybe I want to put a little bit of zigzag down the edge of this plain watercolor paper. I'm still in zigzag mode, yes. Just to give it a little bit of interest. I'm just going to do a straight stitch down the edge of this one. This is a pocket, or a part of a bag, and I think I'm going to sew the bottom so it looks like it's, I think I'm going to fold it over. Have a little bit more tooth here. Make it into like a pocket. I think that would be super fun. And then I'm just going to straight stitch it. Fun times. And I have this in so it's actually on the fold so that it half the pocket is on one side and half the pocket is on the other side of the fold. So you end up with two pockets, so that's fun. Let's see, every few items. I am probably, this tissue paper seems really thin to me, and I may actually double face the tissue paper. But I will decide that before I put all the things together. Essentially, I'm not going to be finishing this out. I'm going to do the first page of the signature, and then it's going to go off to other people to have other people finish the or add to my pages, which I think is going to be super fun, and put their spin on a couple of some of the spreads. I think there's 8 people in our rotation. I'll link below the Facebook group that it's like a junk journaling Facebook group. Okay, so there I did a zigzag stitch all the way around the edge of that one, so that goes on the outside. Okay, we're gonna get started on adding these pieces to the back again. I want this kind of flexible. I have the inside fabric, but I want there to be some flexibility to this. So that's where I went with like a heavy duty packaging that is a little bit easier to flex. I am going to glue this in with probably Magnatac. That will also seal down all of these threads. And I'm going to give it a generous amount of Magnatac. Okay, we got Magnatac all over. I'm going to stick this down inside of my lines. Because again, this is just in an effort to give me a little bit more rigidity. Because I don't want it like so floppy, but I don't know. This may be a complete and utter disaster. But we experiment. Because that sometimes you find genius ways of doing things that are fabulous. So hopefully this works out. All right, again, I want to line it up. I did leave a little bit of a gap, again, so I have a little bit easier, people have an easier time kind of closing the book and creasing. So there's an easy fold there. The dog is eating the ironing board. I've already pre-prepped the back, and I pre-prepped the back or the inside fabric utilizing Helen, because again, my fabric was really thin in general, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I felt like it was going to be too thin, and once I start like sticking and gluing and all of that shit on here, I was worried that it was going to be too thin, because I want to create my outside spine, and then I want to create my inside, and I'm going to do a hidden spine because I don't know that I want my threads from my signature sewing to show through, because again, then it's going to end up, not that would be a bad thing, but I would have the stitches or the laces coming through, and I don't want that on here. I might end up adding some lettering or whatever to the spine and adding more stuff. And so I could have sewn through this at this point, probably still, but again, the sewing was a lot easier when it was just the canvas. So adding that embellishment definitely had to happen first. I don't necessarily need to do everything. Hi, baby. Is the ironing board really tasty? I don't necessarily have to do all of the embellishment yet. Because again, that would have been, if you put a bunch of stuff on here that's rigid, it would have probably not lain flat. Okay, I'm going to cut my corners about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch on a diagonal, because that way when they fold in, they're not overlapping as much, which we might end up cutting off some more. That may not be. I want to give a little bit there to cover the corner, but not so much that it bulks up in the corner. So now we're going to take the Fabri-Tac and we are going to, I'm going to fold this in because I want this to be wrapped all the way around. One of the things that I have found to be invaluable in this entire process are a couple of things. I have an antique iron that I can sit on things to hold when I need an extra set of hands or to like get paper to lay flat or whatever. On this though, what I would do is come along here and put some clips on here that will hopefully hold this down and make it a little bit from flopping up. And I do opposite sides and then bring these in because then I can get, a nice crisp corner. I'm gonna try to make sure that I tuck this corner in. I want the corner to be wrapped. I want a nice crisp corner. So I might put a little extra glue in the corner just to kind of make sure that goes down. I have to get out some more clips because I don't think I have enough all the way to the edge. My corner is tucked in first. That's the beauty of this canvas too. It kind of has a memory to it. Okay, I'm going to push this over. I am unfortunately getting a little bit of canvas is coming undone. I might have to glue. I don't know if that's the canvas is coming apart. Clearly the canvas was not meant. Oh, it's the paint. I got a bit of paint loss on the edges, so I will probably go over because it's just not meant to fold like that, right? I'll probably go over the edges with some matte medium afterwards just to make sure that I don't get a lot of paint loss. Because again, maybe that no one's done this before because it's a disastrous decision. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe this is genius. Good way to use up all those paintings that are sitting in Goodwill. Or that you will never grace the halls of anything amazing like this one. Okay, I just make sure that that's down, and I'll fold her over. I'll grab the end there, and as you can see, I don't know if you guys can see that, I'm getting a little bit of paint loss there on the edge. Not an issue. We will fix that with a little bit of. Anyway, there's my cover. I am going to go over the entire cover with the matte medium probably once I clean all of this flaky stuff that came out of the holes, just to ensure that there's another layer to prevent the paint, because it's paint on canvas, it's acrylic on canvas, so there's the possibility that the scratches or the paint flakes off, whatever, in this process. So there we have it. That's okay, so now that we have that done, the other part that I need to do, because I needed the exact size of this, this fabric was really, really thin fabric. So I took Pellin, which is, if you don't know what Pellin is, it's got these little glue dots on one side. This is a lightweight Pellin fabric. I don't know that you can read that. Peril interfacing. So it's an interfacing fusible mid-weight from the Pellin company. P as in Paul, ELLON. I keep this stuff on hand. You can wash it in the machine. It's just made to kind of make fabric more rigid. Anyway, I have ironed it on already on the inside of here. Again, this is on the inside, right? because what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this on top essentially, or stitch it. I don't know if I'm going to stitch it down, but this will be the inside with my signatures coming out of here, with all of my stitches hidden on the inside, or at least that's my hope. This always turns out a disaster whenever I try to do these books because I don't know, I haven't made enough of them. This is only the second one I think that I've stitched. The first one I ended up taking apart because I hated it. If that tells you anything. But essentially, once I want to go ahead and get this sewn down so I have a nice crisp edge before I put it in, because I don't necessarily want a frayed edge. I want a sewn edge. And so I want to make sure that I have the right size for the finished size, bearing in mind that often your inside cover needs to be slightly smaller. And I learned this from purse making. When you're doing a trifold like clutch, the inside is just a tiny bit smaller. So I'm gonna figure out exactly, what size this is. I'm gonna use my nice clean edge. I want to leave myself, an inch to sew over. Again, to give me the edges some good tooth, or a little bit sturdier. So I've made this way bigger than it needs to be. But I'm gonna trace. Again, this is on the inside, so it's not hurting anything to come in here and trace where this ends up at, to kind of give me an idea of what we have going on here. Take this off so I can get good. And these are why these clips are really helpful, because if you see the areas where the clips were, they are good and tight. And the areas where they're not, they're not. And I'm going to get the sewing machine back out, and I'm going to fold down on my line, and I'm going to come down a little bit further than my line. So in essence, to about here, because I don't necessarily, again, when it folds up, this is slightly smaller. So I want, and right now the line is on the outside edge. So I do want to come in a little bit further, maybe 1/4 of an inch, which would make it slightly smaller than my outside. So when I stick it on and then it folds up, it doesn't bunch up and everything is in the right place. And the only reason I know that is because I did a lot of prototyping on purses, handbags. Okay, so again, I'm gonna do this, probably give myself a good solid inch or two on the outside edge of this. Save all your scraps. Save every bit of scrap, because you never know. So because I use this on the inside, now I'm going to take scraps of this and I'm going to add it to other things. This can be torn into pieces and made ties. I could make a page out of this. I can glue it to other things. I mean, there's a variety of things. So don't get rid of your scrap yet, because we can use it to, again, embellish the pages. So I'm going to sew. I love these. If you don't have these little clips, if you sew, these are a game changer instead of using pins. Love, love, love these. I'm going to come down again, like I said, to that inside line, fold over and clip where I want the inside line to be. And then I'm going to go in and just do a straight stitch. Okay, I'm going to do the sides first. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and cut these just like I did with the book, and go ahead and stick these down all the way around. I want to be able to do one stitch, and then I don't want to have to go around this a million times. On the corner, I'm just going to make sure that that's really tucked in tight. And everything lines up good. Just again, make sure your corner is nice and tight. Otherwise, it'll come out and you will be annoyed. Okay, so again, this is going to fold over just slightly. I'm going to tuck it in and make sure, and then put a clip on it to make sure that as I sew, I will double check it as I go around just to verify and make sure that it stays in nice and tight. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Let me set this aside and bring the sewing machine back over, and I will stitch around this. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I finished sewing around, and I actually went over this one twice, if you can see. So it'll be interesting just to give it a little extra interest. Now, if I've done this correctly, this should be slightly smaller than my outer. And I should see just a little edge of the blue around the outside. Okay, so we are good to go as far as that is concerned. So great on that. I would have liked it a little bit less, but I think we're okay, because here's the deal. Once we fold it up, as I mentioned, this moves slightly and gets closer to the edge. So the reality is that it may look like this is slightly short, but when you fold your book and when you open it, it'll stretch. This is a little stretchy anyway, and you should be fine. Otherwise, it's going to get wrinkly on the inside. So we should be okay, because we'll likely put the signature in and then glue the outside edges shut. So that's that. And this is the right, I think, amount of flexibility now. So I think we're good as far as that's concerned. I like the inside cover. I will attach all of my signatures through here. So that's coming next. Okay, I've sewn tabs on here. So now I think I'm going to do just 2 signatures, because again, this is going to get really fluffy. And I think we have like 8 people on the trade. So I just kind of made the 4, and then I put in a couple at random. I did also, as I was stitching some down, I went all the way down or just partial ways. So that one's on a blue sheet. Those are tabs. This one's just kind of a random one, again, stitched part of the way down or all the way down in different stitches. This one's just on the, all over stitched page. Okay, so this gives me a little bit more room, because I want to give enough space for people to be able to add their stuff without it becoming too cumbersome. So again, I'm going to probably space my signatures out. I've got a solid 2-inch spine on this bad boy. So by the time it's all, said and done, I have plenty of extra space. So that's, the tabs are going to kind of stick out the edge. I think this is, that's the back. I think this is going to be really cute once it's all said and done. And I've got, again, plenty of space in here. I probably could have divided these up into a third, which I might end up doing before I sew it in, just because I think that those gaps are weird, but and give it a little bit more space. But I will sort that out as I go. And again, this is the interior piece that's going to go in here like so. So when you open the book up, it'll be stitched in. And it'll look kind of like this when you open it, essentially, which will be really kind of cool. Yeah, I am super, super duper excited. I probably should have done a different, the tabs in a different color, but that's okay. I could have done the tabs in a hot pink. That may be too matchy, but for now, it'll work. Again, we'll see what everybody does with the tabs and the other stuff that goes in here. And we'll probably add some additional hot pink silk strips to this to make a bookmark or something to come off the end. Careful, this may be too thick. Might be too thick. Kind of too late now. Too late now to make it thinner, but that's okay. There was no information on how thick they wanted it to be, so they should be able to fit it in the 9x12 padded envelope. That's the cheaper option to ship in. And again, it squishes down, so it's not like it's going to be the end of the world, because the spine is nice and kind of squishy. Because again, I put that line in there, so it can curl or curve in and squish flatter, and it will be just fine. That's the only prerequisite will be, and I might end up sewing these in. Come to think of it, I might split these up and then sew them into the fabric. I haven't tried that rather than stitching them with binding. If I separate these into smaller chunks and then sew them in, that actually might be even better. So let me think on that rather than doing the binding, because the binding I'm terrible at. And I hate that you can see it, which was the whole point of like doing the hidden binding. So maybe we'll sew these in. Now that I put the sewing machine away, of course. Okay, more later. Okay, I wanted to show you what I figured out on the binding that I wanted to do. I split my papers into smaller signatures. So essentially each signature or each chunk of paper, not really signatures, has 3 to 4 pieces in smaller chunks. I don't like the big gaps when you do less, like 3 signatures. There's big gaps in the spine area, which kind of looks funny to me. And every time I've tried to, do binding, I manage to flub it up. So this time I thought I would sew in the binding. I was going to do it with the machine, but then at the last minute I decided just to do it with some embroidery floss and a needle. I have 8 of these that are going in. I have marked my spine where the 8 signatures would line up, essentially. And if you can see that there, they're just marks of where these are going to line up. And I've started stitching them in. Now, I double check my signature to make sure that everything is kind of facing the correct way, right? Then I line up the signature with where it's going to hit the crease is going to hit on that line, essentially the next line that I'm sewing to. And once I have everything kind of lined up and it's even on both sides, because my inside is slightly smaller, right? I've got everything good. I will go in here, find my middle, that's the middle, and clip it with some clippies just to make sure that it doesn't, move around on me as I am working. And then it, stays relatively straight. Okay, so we're going to clip this bad boy in. Just double check that we are completely straight here, because this feels, the blue paper is always slightly longer. Okay, and I'm on that crease line that I just made, the next one that I need to sew to. Start out with a needle and some embroidery floss, and I'm just going to do like kind of a running stitch, starting at the bottom in that next line that I'm sewing to and coming up through the crease in the paper. And that's kind of the trick, is to make sure that when you come through the paper that you are in the crease. Once you get this started moving along, it works out just fine. Okay. And then we go back down through the crease, making sure that we're hitting the line on the back side that we're sewing to. And this has worked out like really well. Again, back up through the line that I'm sewing to, through the crease, a little off crease. And then any of these smaller pieces that were like at the center, like I have a sheet of music, I'm gonna grab now with my needle and thread and make sure that it gets tucked in there. And again, double checking that when I come back down through, that I'm coming back down through the line that I'm sewing on. And this has actually worked really well, and they're evenly, all the papers are evenly spaced out. I have that flexibility in the spine for the signatures to kind of be able to move, which is helpful once you open everything up, that they have a little bit more room, right, to expand as they are when you're designing your individual pages. So I thought this was for me, I've tried binding several times and I just keep fucking it up. I don't know, with the waxed thread and doing larger chunks, and it just is a mess on the back end. And then when I try to put it in the book, on the cover, like there's so much going on here with that thick wax thread that it never lays flat. And I'm kind of hopeful that this is something that is gonna just look nicer for me. The stitching's not completely straight, but that's fine. Like I said, I thought about doing this with the sewing machine, but this morning I didn't want to have to dig the sewing machine back out. So that's why I'm doing it by hand, which has not been bad. I mean, there's only 8 chunks of this, so it's really not that terrible. My fingers hurt a little bit because it is a lot to get through. So you might put a thimble or something on when you're doing this. If I spaced it right, I come down in the right spot, but I didn't quite space this one right. I don't go all the way to the top, but again, end up on this line. I've just been, I guess you could just keep going, but I have just been tying that off and then tucking my knot in and cutting it off and starting over on the next area. Because it's working for me sewing left to right. Okay, next one. I know I had last night had sewed the little tabs on here. I hated how they stuck out, and I was worried that once I do the tie for the outside of the binding that they would be in the way. I actually cut them all off so they're even. It just adds a little interest, but like, I don't know, it was bothering me. I laid awake for a long time thinking about that last night. The other thing you want to make sure is if you have any, this is my front, right? So I'm doing front to back. If you have any things in here that were pockets, they're facing the right way. So like this has an opening at the top. So I want to make sure that that's at the top of where the thing is going to be. So again, line it up with the next line. This has worked out really, really well for me so far. Line it up with the next line. We're good across. Everything's even. Hold it. Find your middle. Clip it in place. Do a couple of clippies so again it's not moving. I tried like clipping both sides, clipping both sides, and once you opened it up it was kind of not lining up and it was frustrating me, thinking, you know what I mean? So this actually has worked out really well, just kind of lining up, making sure the top is clipped. I still have enough wiggle room because the back is not clipped to be able to finagle where my line is coming up in the actual center of the page. So yeah, I mean, this is working out really great thus far. Push this back through. I'm glad I documented this process because I want to make sure that I remember how I did this. Alternative, because I haven't seen anybody do this, and I don't know why nobody's doing this type of binding. Maybe you'll find out later that it all falls apart. I don't know. But I would think that it would be more secure because now I'm going through, or maybe people don't want to take the time to do 8 sections. I don't know. I think it's going to lay flatter in the actual cover once I get all this in here is my assumption, because again, I have a lot more flexibility in this bind due to the way that I've done this. I guess we'll see once we put it all together how well it flexes in this bind. I thought about reinforcing this area too with some more pellin. I have a thicker pellin here to put a strip in here, but I'd already marked it, and so I just went with it. I think this is strong enough with this piece of pellin that it should be fine, but if you're worried about things coming out or whatever, or this bind not being strong enough on the inside, again, it's going to get married to the cardboard or ish stuff that's on the cover, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. Okay, I'm just going to tie this off. So we are done with all 8 pieces. I'm going to cut that off. Again, I love the flexibility of the spine on this. Now I have a super flexible spine. Again, it's going to lay flatter, I think, because I have that, the ability for the spine to flex, right? I have that in there because I've split this up into the 8 sections. It's nice and squishy. There's plenty of space in there to add additional things. And because my cover is also squishy, then I have the ability to, once I tuck this in here and attach it, look how nice and neat that is now. I've got little bits and pieces sticking out, which is fine. It is short of the outer cover by about 1/4 of an inch, which is great. I will line all of this up. I am going to probably, I think I'm going to stitch the cover in once I get the binding, the spine in and glued down. Then I will have the ability to come back through here and figure out like how much give I have to then stitch this on. And I think I am gonna, well, we'll see, because this is awfully thick. I love how that flexes, and it flexes because it moves. It will be not as flexible once I stitch it down. And I need to figure out. I like how it flexes. You know how a lot of times the book spine is actually not attached to the spine of the cover? Like there's a gap there. I wonder if that's why. So maybe I stitch this down here. Leave the spine alone and that gap, because again, that'll still allow this flexibility. Engineering, how books were engineered. And that might actually work better. So flip this over, figure out, and it's about the area where I would have stitched on the outside cover. So then I'll have the double stitch on the outside cover and stitch this in that way, using the sewing machine. That, and then leave the spine unstuck, unglued, right? Because it's good and secure. And then I would still end up, it flexes. And don't glue the spine. Maybe that's where I've been going wrong. I've been trying to glue that spine, and then it has is so rigid and it doesn't want to. So I really just need these outer pieces to stick down, and then I have the flexibility of the spine to flex open. I like that idea. And we'll try that. Making sure that I'm lining up and doing. See if the sewing machine can get through all those layers. I may have to figure it out. It's a lot of layers for the sewing machine to get through. I don't think if this outer cover was any thicker than this, that would work. So again, you could roll the sewing machine by hand, but that is going to be super cumbersome and time consuming for the sewing machine to do that. But it might be my only option. But we're going to try to make this work. And again, I do think you need to go all the way around and through here just to catch this. So, and then, that fabric is pretty, between the fabric and the stitching, I don't think that's going anywhere. See how off some of my stitches were at the very beginning. That was the first one I did, which was obviously a disaster compared to, some of the other ones, which were more straight. Okay, so I think the next step is going to be to sew this down with the sewing machine, sewing in the front and back. And again, with the idea that I will have a lot more flexibility with the spine by leaving the spine unglued. So I'm going to go sew this on the sewing machine. You don't necessarily have to watch that. And then I will come back and show you what that looks like.